In a game Notre Dame absolutely had to win to keep their playoff hopes alive, Marcus Freeman and his squad did exactly that as the Irish beat the Louisville Cardinals 31-24 on Saturday. Was it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. But did this team play anywhere close to their best? Absolutely not. My full recap and reaction is next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, and welcome to Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports. It's great to have you here on a Sunday night, September 29th. I just got back home in LA after a great weekend in South Bend, and I'm so excited to talk about that weekend with you. As a reminder, this show is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can watch the full episode on YouTube as well. Just a reminder to hit that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel if that's how you're tuning in, or rate, review, and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's dive into it. Notre Dame got some revenge on Saturday by defeating the Louisville Cardinals, and all week in the lead-up, we talked about how important this game was for this season and really the Marcus Freeman era, because the Irish needed to win to keep their playoff hopes alive and prevent this season from completely unraveling with the loss. So I feel like the win should be celebrated. The Irish took a big step in the right direction on offense. The defense hung tough throughout, despite a litany of injuries on that side of the ball, and they were able to shake off a terrible start on special teams. And when you add it all up, it was good enough for a 7-point win and a cover for the Irish, who led for 52 minutes of game action total and by double digits for 28 minutes. I've also got some thoughts about the atmosphere in and around Notre Dame Stadium, but I'll get to that at the end because I want to start with how the Notre Dame offense started the game, because I believe that is the most important development coming out of this game. For the first 3 drives, that looked like the Notre Dame offense that was playing to its full potential. But then for the next 2 quarters, it looked like the offense we have watched all season long. But in the end, the offense was able to put it all together one last time to deliver a great drive and put the game away. So it was an up and down performance with peaks and valleys and seemingly everything in between. But they were able to get it done. Let's focus on the start here for a second. Notre Dame has been phenomenal on opening drives all season long. That has been one consistent thing about this group. They went 12 plays for 70 yards for a score on Saturday after a disgusting start to the game after Devin Ford fumbled the opening kickoff. Notre Dame has now scored points on its opening drive in 4 out of 5 games this season, 3 of which went for touchdowns. They kicked a field goal on the opening drive against Texas A&M, and they did not score on the opening drive against Miami. Other than that, the first 15 scripted plays of every game, they've come out ready to go, and they came out ready to go on Saturday. This opening drive had a mix of everything, which I think is why it looked especially positive for this group. Riley Leonard was accurate on the short passes. They used him on the rollouts. Got him going early. He looked a lot more comfortable than he did at the beginning of the Miami game. He was also able to scramble and found Jane Greathouse downfield, which is a really nice play, and that's been a big complaint from the fan base about how once he tucks the ball and he runs outside of the pocket, he's only thinking about running. This time he was able to find Jane Greathouse downfield for a nice first down, and they also had some nice, strong runs to lead the way on their way to a touchdown. Then the offense was able to keep the momentum going after the defense forced a fumble, and Notre Dame actually recovered a fumble for once, which has not been something they've been able to do all season long, and I know that most of it is luck, but it just kind of got to the point where you're like, dude, can they ever just pick up a fumble? Well, they got one in this one, and then the Notre Dame offense took advantage of that opportunity. Jadarian Price had a nice 16-yard run to put the Irish in great field position. It was really the only good run for Jadarian Price in this day because he did not play much after a fumble. We'll get to that in a second. And then Leonard hit Jane Greathouse on a wide open shot in the end zone. It was the perfect time to take a shot. It was second down. The game was tied. They had great field position, and you've got Louisville reeling after the first touchdown and then the forced fumble, and they took advantage of it. I was nudging my parents during the game. I was like, I feel a shot coming. I feel a shot coming. And then you just see Jane Greathouse streaking right down the middle of the field. It was there. Riley Leonard made the play. Great pass, great catch by Greathouse, who really needed that after a slow start to the season. So it was great to see him find the end zone in this one. Riley Leonard's second passing touchdown on the year. Then the offense got the ball back on the Louisville 4-yard line after a bad snap on a Louisville punt attempt, and Notre Dame did not waste any time putting the ball in the end zone. Riley Leonard ran it in for a touchdown, and Notre Dame went up 21-7. The atmosphere was electric. The crowd was riled up. That sequence was just so much fun to watch. Like I said, it was electric inside the stadium. Everything was clicking for Notre Dame, and it felt like it was about to be a pivotal moment for this offense and for this team this season. They had a big lead, and I said in the lead up, if they come out and they dominate Louisville, they could really make a statement. It's not going to just, it's not going to be enough to forget their sins that they made against Northern Illinois and Miami, but if they came out and they dominated Louisville from start to finish, I think it would go a really long way. And Notre Dame looked like they were poised to do that, but they didn't. They didn't at all. They needed to dominate this game to make a real emphatic statement, and they had their opportunity, but they just did not take advantage of it because they took their foot off the gas. Jadarian Price fumbled at their own 9-yard line to give Louisville another gift. They scored, I think, 3 plays after that. And then Notre Dame was not able to move the ball at all on the next 5 positions, and I'm not including the drive to end the first half. This is how it went down after the fumble. 4 plays, then a punt, and that first down that they got on that drive was only because of a roughing the passer penalty by Ashton Gelati. Then they went 3 plays and kicked a field goal after a Xavier Watts interception gave them great field position. 3 and out, 3 and out, 10 plays and a turnover on downs after Riley Leonard got stuffed on 4th and short. And finally, Mike Denbrock was able to dial up 2 great plays on the same drive for the Irish to score and go up 2 touchdowns once again. And that was at a moment where it looked like Louisville was poised to make a comeback there. They had cut it down to a touchdown deficit, but it was a perfect play to set up Jane Harrison on a 34-yard catch, and then a perfectly executed throwback screen for a touchdown. As soon as Jeremiah Love caught the ball from my angle, you could just see a ton of green and a ton of Notre Dame beef in front of him. So once he caught it, it was clear he was going to go in for a touchdown, and it was a great play design. Mike Denbrock's 2 best play calls as the Notre Dame OC in this tenure came on the same drive when Notre Dame absolutely needed it. But Louisville responded with the 14-play touchdown drive of their own to cut it to a touchdown deficit once again, and Notre Dame got the ball back with just over 5 minutes to go and the opportunity to put the game away. By that point, Louisville had exhausted all of their timeouts. Notre Dame just needed to convert a couple first downs, and this game would be over. Instead, they had another 3 and out, and just some of the most boring, basic plays. There was no aggression there at all, and they gave Louisville the ball back with a chance to tie it. Fortunately, Notre Dame's defense came through with the stop, and that's why I think fans are still so frustrated with this offense, despite the fact that they showed significant improvement in this game, especially early on. There were moments in this game when this group looked really good. They had a great start. They came through in a high-pressure moment there at the end, and they took a step in the right direction. I thought Riley Leonard looked much more comfortable throwing the ball in this one. He finished 16 of 23 for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. He went 3 of 5 on passes 10 yards or more, including the touchdown pass. They were aggressive early in the game, but then they were very conservative in the second half. But he didn't really have a bunch of bad misses like he did against Miami, Ohio. Louisville sold out to stop the run, but Leonard and Love had some nice touchdown carries. And even though I've been critical of Mike Denbrock and that he hasn't really schemed up enough plays that were wide open, he did it twice in this game in a big spot. So kudos to him for that. But you just cannot afford to have so many empty possessions like they did on Saturday. And you also cannot gift the other team a touchdown when one of your best players fumbles the ball in the shadow of your own end zone. Notre Dame finished 2 of 10 on third downs, and they were outgained by a total of 154 yards. That's just not good enough. So I'm pleased with the improvements because those were necessary, and it was enough to win the game. They took advantage of the opportunities when they got them, especially after the Louisville turnovers, but they also missed on some golden opportunities to make an emphatic statement about the direction of this unit and this team. Like, they came out rolling at the start of the game, and for as much fun as those first few drives were, the next 2 quarters were like pulling teeth. It was not enjoyable to watch at all. And yes, part of it is on the players for sure. I think the offensive line got dominated for a good chunk of this game once Louisville decided to stack the box and blitz at will. And look, Louisville does have a really good defensive line. I thought they were deep. I mean, we knew about Ashton Gelati. We knew about TJ Quinn at linebacker. And they were given this offensive line fits, which I guess is to be expected because this is a young, inexperienced unit who also doesn't have a ton of chemistry playing together given the injuries that they've dealt with on that line. Riley Leonard was only sacked 1 time, but the offensive line still gave up 5 TFLs in 9 quarterback pressures. They did have 4.13 yards per carry, but they just never got the running game going consistently, and that made life difficult on the offense as a whole. I thought Mitchell Evans had a really quiet day, just 3 catches for 14 yards. I thought Notre Dame would go to him a little bit more on third down. Just didn't really happen. Bo Collins had a couple of bad drops. But I think most of all, this is on the coaching staff for the way that they just changed their mindset there after such a great start. Like, that's on Marcus Freeman. That's on Mike Denbrock. And that's on the entire offensive coaching staff. It felt like they were calling a game not to lose rather than be aggressive and try to dominate Louisville. And that is something that I've kind of taken issue with this team as a whole. Like, Marcus Freeman came out in that Texas A&M game, and he was fired up and ready to go. He was getting his team ready to go. But it seems like ever since then, he's been playing very passive. And even when he's aggressive sometimes on fourth down, you don't really feel like an eagerness to dominate your opponent. Like, for example, remember when Georgia played TCU in the national championship? Kirby Smart got interviewed by Holly Rowe before the game, and they were like, "What do you want to see from your team in this one?" And he said, "Aggression." That was it. And then you hear about his halftime speeches or his speeches before the game. He's lighting into his guys, and he really wants his team to kill the opponent. I just don't see that from this Notre Dame team. And they had an opportunity to really kill Louisville in this game when they went up 2 touchdowns early on in the game and had all the momentum, but they just didn't do it. And championship teams keep their foot on the gas, and they dominate their opponent. If you let them back into the game, it might cost you. And look, I know that it happens to other teams around college football. Just look at Alabama in their game against Georgia. They let them back in the game and almost lost it. They were able to win in the same way that Notre Dame was able to win, but still, I just wanted to see more from the offense in this one, especially after they had such a great start. And that's what made this so frustrating. I understand why fans aren't satisfied with this win because they could have won by a lot more. But that being said, they still won, and they came through when their backs were against the wall. They took a step, and I think they made some significant improvements, but they could have taken an even bigger step. And even though I think we learned some good things about this team, there's still so much that we don't know and cannot really understand it. It mostly starts with the offense here. The good thing is they go into the bye with a win and plenty of teachable moments, and now we're really going to see what this offensive staff is made out of, because I think the best coach teams are able to right a lot of wrongs coming off a bye week. Just think back to how much better Notre Dame's offense looked in 2021 after the bye week that season. They struggled mightily throughout the first half of the year. They had no identity. They couldn't really get anything going. There was uncertainty at quarterback and offensive line, and really with what that identity was. But then they came out of that bye, put up a ton of points in North Carolina, and looked so much better the rest of the way. And there is no reason to think that this group can't do the same. They have talent on that side of the ball. They have a really smart offensive coordinator in Mike Denbrock. And if they come out and they figure things out over the bye week and come out and start playing anywhere near their full potential, this group could actually be an offense that is capable of making the college football playoff and doing some damage when they get there. We're just going to have to see how much they improve in a short period of time. Okay, when we come back, the Notre Dame defense did give up a lot of yards, but they came up big when it mattered most, despite the fact that their depth was really tested in this one. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Okay, Monday Night Football tomorrow night, or maybe later tonight if you're listening to this on Monday. And FanDuel has got a 4-leg same-game parlay, the Boomer and Phil same-game parlay. And here's what it is. You bet with Boomer and Phil as they back Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills against the Ravens. Here are the 4 legs. Buffalo Bills money line, Josh Evan plus 275 yards, Khalil Shakir plus 50 yards, and Dalton Kincaid 4+ receptions. A $10 wager on this bet could win you $138.90. I really like this pick. I think you roll with it, and then we'll come back here on Tuesday and figure out whether or not we won. And we got more picks coming to you the rest of the week. And for more, just visit FanDuel.com today. Notre Dame's defense was tested in a way that we have not seen in a long time against Louisville. And even though they gave up some yards, they came through when it mattered most. And I was really impressed with this group as a whole. I understand that a lot of people are going to look at the total yards they allowed, and they're not going to feel the same way. I get it. But considering the circumstances, I was blown away by Al Golden and what his group was able to accomplish in this one. Notre Dame's defenders were dropping like flies on Saturday. It was really unfortunate. Boubacar Traore suffered what appears to be a season-ending knee injury, which is so disappointing because he was really poised to break out this season as he replaced Jordan Botelho, who also suffered a season-ending knee injury this year. He suffered it in the first half against Purdue. So Traore had a great opportunity, started off this game looking great, had this amazing chase down tackle on a play for a tackle for loss, and I was just so excited to watch him blossom this season. It looks like that's going to be cut short. So that's pretty devastating for this defensive line and really the defense as a whole. Notre Dame's medical staff also decided to hold out Christian Gray in this one. I thought he was going to play. He practiced last week in a red jersey, and he suffered a shoulder injury against Miami. Felt like he was going to get a chance to go out there and play in this one, but Notre Dame's medical staff kept him out. True freshman Leonard Moore started in his place. I thought he played great in this one. More on him in a second. Notre Dame's senior linebacker Jack Kaiser only played 16 snaps and had a significant limp throughout this one, so they were missing another key piece in the middle of that defense. Benjamin Morrison missed a chunk of this game while he went to the locker room. He's dealing with an injury. Fortunately, he was able to come back in this game, but Benjamin Morrison, Christian Gray, Jack Kaiser, and Boubacar Traore are four of the most important players on this defense and really the entire team, and they all missed a huge chunk of this game. So to do enough on defense without most of those guys this afternoon is really impressive, in my opinion. And Louisville scored 3 touchdowns in this one, which is more than the starters have given up all season long. But 2 of those came right after Notre Dame turnovers and gave them great field position. And then they let up 1 long drive plus a 56-yard field goal. So even though they gave up a bunch of yards, really, they held tough when it mattered most. And Louisville has some really, really impressive players on offense. I was blown away by their quarterback, Tyler Shuck, in this one. He hung tough despite getting pressured a lot. He made some big-time throws. That touchdown pass he made when he was rolling to his left got drilled by Drake Bowen and threw a sidearm play for a touchdown on 3rd down, and there were 3 Notre Dame defenders in that area of the end zone. He put it exactly where it needed to be in a really big spot. So you got to just tip your cap on a play like that. Ja'Cory Brooks and Colin Lacey are 2 of the best wide receivers that Notre Dame is going to face all year long. Credit to Colin Lacey. It's his first game back after suffering a broken collarbone in preseason camp. He had not even had 1 practice. It was his first day that he was cleared for contact. I did not think he was going to be a factor in this game. He was. He had 5 receptions for 71 yards, including one of the best catches you're going to see all season long when he made that incredible one-handed catch along the sideline. Rod Hurd was all over him in coverage, and Lacey made the play. It was an unbelievable catch, a great throw by Tyler Shuck. Notre Dame was clearly willing to give up some yards on the ground in this one, but in the short yardage situations, I thought Notre Dame came up big. Louisville finished 1 of 5 on 4th down, and that was a big difference in this game. So, yeah, it wasn't always pretty. Louisville got some big chunk plays in this one, but Notre Dame's defense came through. Here's a couple guys who I thought really stood out in this one. Xavier Watts, another interception for him, 2 pass breakups. He was just all over the ball. He is all over the field back there, and he is really just having a great season after he broke out onto the scene last year. I was unsure if he could ever do anything to live up to that, but he's well on his way right now. He came up huge for the defense in this one. Leonard Moore, the true freshman, first career start. He led the team in tackles, and they tested him a lot in coverage. They targeted him 7 times, but I thought he played well despite the touchdown that he gave up to Ja'Cory Brooks. His forced fumble early on in that game showed great football instincts. Tyler Shuck fooled the entire crowd on that read option, including myself. I was getting excited when I saw RJ Open make a play in the backfield on the running back. You're thinking, oh, that's a tackle for loss. And then you just see Tyler Shuck streaking down the field. But then Xavier Watts has him fade over to the sideline. He forgets to protect the ball. Leonard Moore comes in. Perfect punch on the ball. Finally, Notre Dame recovered a fumble. Great play by Jane Osprey, because if he bobbled that at all, he's probably going to go out of bounds, and then Notre Dame would not have been able to recover it. So great play by 2 young players in that one. And then Jordan Clark and Rod Hurd had to step up in a big way without Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray on the field for this one. At one point, Clark was playing cornerback, and then Hurd came in and filled in for Clark at nickel. They came up huge in this one. And yes, Clark had the really bad unsportsmanlike penalty in this one, but as it came out after the fact, it sounds like that Louisville wide receiver spit on him earlier in the game. Do I think that Clark should have done that? No, but I also don't think he should have been ejected, like some fans suggest. Either way, inexcusable mistake by a senior, but overall, his play in this game was really stood out to me. He had 2 pass breakups, allowed just 4 catches for 26 yards, and they targeted him 7 times, including in the last play of the game there. As a whole, Notre Dame secondary had 8 passes defended. They're just a bunch of playmakers. And even without 2 of their best players, they bring in the backups and they just reload. So credit to Mike Mickens and that entire secondary for their performance in this one when they were really being tested. And then on the defensive line, I thought Howard Cross looked like the player that we've come to expect. He had 5 quarterback hurries, 1 at the point of attack, only had 2 tackles in this one, but I thought he was a big impact player in this one. Riley Mills had a big sack and a big moment. So great for him after a slow start to the year. And Drake Bowen, man, he continues to shine. There's a point early on where I thought maybe Kingston Viliamu-Asa would supplant him as the starter by this point in the season. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Drake Bowen needs to be on the field more. He had 5 tackles, including a big tackle for loss. But KVA has shined as well. He had a really impressive dip move on his way to a big sack on Tyler Shuck in this one. And Notre Dame had 3 sacks on Shuck in this game, who had not been sacked one time coming into this game. So Al Golden got creative with his blitzes to create some pressure. I thought Notre Dame was in the backfield a lot. And even though it didn't always show up on the stat sheet because Tyler Shuck was able to make some big plays, this defense played really well overall. But was it perfect? No, absolutely not. Louisville converted on 7 of 17 third downs. Notre Dame allowed 5.1 yards per carry, and that's just way too many in this one. And I think what was really frustrating was Louisville was averaging 9 yards per play on first down in the first half. And there were just way too many times when Louisville would have the ball backed up in their own territory, and then Notre Dame would give up some big chunk plays so that even if Louisville didn't end up scoring on the drive, Notre Dame could set themselves up with great field position, but Louisville would be able to get out of the shadow of their own end zone in a way that Notre Dame really just couldn't do. They couldn't stop them that much. And my concern about this defense has less to do with what happened in the actual game and the performance from this unit, and has more to do with what could come, because this is a deep team, and it's a really deep unit, but everyone has their limits, and those limits are being tested right now on the Notre Dame defense. Notre Dame's top 2 edge rushers are likely out for the year, because Jordan Botelho was playing great before his injury, and Boubacar is likely out for the season as well. I know that we haven't gotten an official word yet, but based on his reaction, the way that his teammates were talking to him, giving him hugs, consoling him, same with the medical staff, like no good signs there with that situation. Josh Burnham is still working his way back from an injury. He only played 4 snaps in this one, so Notre Dame is arguably without their top 3 edge guys because RJ Oben didn't play well again, and at this point, there's really not any great reason to believe that he's going to figure it out on this Notre Dame defense. That is becoming more of an issue. I think Jack Kaiser and Christian Gray are going to be okay, but those situations are worth monitoring. Fortunately, Notre Dame has the bye week, so these guys have 2 weeks to recover. And all in all, this group that had a chance to be elite this season might not ever reach that potential because they have just had such bad luck with injuries. Notre Dame still has 7 more games left in the regular season, so odds are more injuries are going to happen. That's just the nature of this sport. It's reality. And it's part of the reason why I think anybody who's pointing the finger at Loren Lando, the strength and conditioning coach, and blaming him for this stretch of injuries is just completely wrong. Okay? These have all been freak injuries. Christian Gray fell awkwardly on his shoulder. Ashton Craig got rolled up when he was out there in the open field. A defender literally fell on Billy Schroth's leg at the line of scrimmage, and he got rolled up. Jordan Faison hurt his ankle a few weeks ago on a hip drop tackle that is literally banned in the NFL, and then he re-aggravated it again in this one when he got rolled up. And then Botelho and Boubacar suffered freak non-contact injuries that unfortunately happen all the time at all levels of football. Like, we aren't talking about soft tissue hamstring pulls. These are freak injuries that just aren't preventable when you're playing football. And I understand that some fans are a little bit concerned about Lando because when he got let go by the Broncos, a lot of people attribute it to the amount of like hamstring injuries and soft tissue things that were piling up. But I don't think that any of these injuries have anything to do with Loren Lando. Like when Notre Dame had that run in 2015 where it felt like a new starter was losing or getting hurt every single week for the rest of the season, like a lot of those were just freak injuries. It just happens. And if you can find me a strength and conditioning coach who could do something to prevent all the injuries I just laid out from happening, I will show you a liar, because it's not possible when you play this sport. With any team, there's an element of luck that you need to be successful. Most of that has to do with health. And up to this point, Notre Dame just has not had much luck. And that's why this bye week is coming at such an important time. They need time to regroup. They need time to recover because they're really beat up right now on both sides of the ball, but specifically on the defense. Does that mean that they're going to continue getting hurt the rest of the way? I hope not. But it happens. I mean, I just mentioned Notre Dame in 2015, and I think that all those injuries that happened that year are the main reason why that team did not end up making the playoffs. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen again this year, but it could, and that is a major, major concern for this unit that has just been so great up to this point, and it's really disappointing, and it's really concerning, and really all you can do right now if you're Notre Dame is just hope for the best and hope for some good luck to come your way after a really bad string of bad luck. Coming up next are the criticisms of the atmosphere inside Notre Dame Stadium fair. I was there on Saturday. I can tell you there were some great moments, but still a lot to be desired. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Whether it be sports, concerts, comedy shows, you name it, I love going to live events. And Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals and great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And the great thing about Gametime is the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, really whatever live event you want to go to. And just recently, I went to a Dodgers-Guardians game on the same day that Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. I really needed to pick me up. I wanted to go see my favorite team play in person for the first time in a long time, and I was able to go, and I ended up having a great night after a really bad start to the day, all thanks to Gametime. My favorite thing about the app is you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and then you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, I want to wrap up today's show with some thoughts about what it was like inside Notre Dame Stadium on Saturday, because there's just been so much talk about the environment lately. It's been a big topic of conversation among the fan base, and I was not at the Northern Illinois or the Miami game, so I could only tell you what I had heard from my friends who were able to go to the game, but now that I'm there, I think I have a much better perspective on it than I had before, and I think the easiest way to explain it is the experience inside Notre Dame Stadium followed the same ebbs and flows of the team's performance. I thought the crowd absolutely brought it at the start of the game. It was loud before the opening kick. The green out was, I thought, was a big success overall. It was kind of hard to tell, though, because right when Notre Dame's band took the field, it started pouring, so then a lot of people put on their jackets and their ponchos, and they weren't all green, so the green out didn't look quite as green throughout the crowd, but I thought overall the fans came ready to go. But when you fumble the opening kickoff and you allow the opponent to score almost immediately, the fans aren't going to be very happy, and I don't blame them. But it did get really loud after the muff punt and the ensuing touchdown by Notre Dame. That was a great moment, and it really felt like they were about to explode because as I said at the start of the show, like that was such a great opportunity for this team to really make a statement. Like they made a statement in the first win against Texas A&M, but that was on the road. And then when they came home for the opener, they suffered one of the worst losses in program history. I don't even think that's a stretch to say when they lost to Northern Illinois, especially coming off such a big win. And then they didn't look great against Miami, so they come out, and despite the rough opening drive, they came out, they go up with a big lead, and the crowd was really ready to just savor in a great moment, and then the offense slowed down, and so did the crowd. It was really quiet at certain points in the game. They tried to pump in sound through the speakers, and I gotta admit, it was pretty shaky. Like, Luke and I often joke about the playlist that the DJ goes through during these games. The PA announcer had a rough one again. At one point, he called Xavier Watts Deion Colsey. I don't know how you make that mistake, especially when you've been doing this a couple of years. And look, I understand that people make mistakes, but it seems like they're mounting up. And just some of the choice of music. Like, for example, Notre Dame played Like That by Future and Metro Boomin right after Notre Dame got stuffed on 4th and short. Like, you got to read the room, man. You can't be bragging about, are you really like that, when you just got dominated on a critical point in the game. Just let the band play in that moment, right? I thought the music they played for the most part was pretty good. I thought we could have used more from the band at certain points. Like, I love hearing the Celtic chant song after some key plays, but that doesn't happen nearly as much. And I understand that it used to be too much band, and now I actually think it's too little because where you're just constantly pumping in music to get the crowd riled up, it doesn't have the same weight. It doesn't feel the same. It feels like it's manufactured. It's not really organic. But I will say, on the last drive, Notre Dame was really loud. Jeff Brom, the head coach of Louisville, even said after the game that the crowd was a huge factor on the delay of game on 4th down. That is a clear example of the Notre Dame Stadium crowd having an impact on the outcome of that game, because that penalty was massive for Louisville. They ended up not converting it, where if it was 4th and 1, they'd probably just run it, and then they keep that drive alive. So we know that this crowd is capable of being really loud and creating a great environment, but a lot of it was dependent on the action on the field, and it's really hard to blame fans for that, especially when they go so long with anything really exciting to cheer about, because they were cheering a lot at the beginning of the game when it was exciting, but then the second and third quarters were painful. And there really just wasn't anything to get excited about, and the fans just weren't able to do it. They weren't able to rally themselves up. There wasn't any booing or anything like that, and I was standing up and cheering throughout this one, but I was literally at the very top of this stadium. Nobody could tell me to sit down because literally nobody was behind me. So I didn't see anything like that going on in my section. I know that that's come up time and time again throughout the years, and especially recently about the wine and cheese crowd. But I didn't really see any of that. And that's not to say that just because I didn't see any of it doesn't mean that it wasn't happening in the game. But I think the fans in my section were pretty loud. We were right above the students. I thought the students brought it in this one. They were there well before the start of the game. So I was pretty impressed by them. They were doing push-ups and stuff after they scored. And they were very happy to shut up the Louisville fan base. I actually thought there'd be more Louisville fans going into this game. They showed out really well in 2014. That was my freshman year. And there was a lot of Louisville fans who made the trip for that one. I don't think there were nearly as many for this game. Yeah, they had some Cards chants going for sure, but the obnoxious Louisville fans on social media were much more vocal than the ones in attendance. I can promise you that. And I really think there's a growing rivalry here between Notre Dame and Louisville. There is a lot of tension between the fan bases. There's a lot of tension in the lead up during this game. There was a lot of tension in the lead up to last year's game. And I saw a lot of arguing going on between Notre Dame fans and Louisville fans on social media. And don't get me wrong, there are absolutely some really good Louisville fans. I know them. I'm friends with them, with some of them. And it's always the vocal minority who ruin it for the rest of the fan base. You could say that about literally every fan base in college football. But that vocal minority in the Louisville fan base is pretty big, to the point where I'm not sure if it's a minority. And I think Notre Dame fans got a taste of how brutal Louisville Cardinals fans can be last year, and it's something that I've been dealing with for over a decade. That's why I started to cheer for Kentucky over Louisville when my family moved there, because I found Kentucky fans, think about that for a second, I found Kentucky fans to be much less annoying than Louisville fans. And I don't think Kentucky fans have the best reputation, right? Especially Kentucky basketball fans. I remember going to Notre Dame Louisville basketball games when they would play at Freedom Hall when I was a kid, and Louisville fans chirping me when I was 11 years old. And I wasn't being obnoxious. I was just cheering for Notre Dame. And grown adults were like really talking trash to me and saying some pretty insane things to an 11-year-old. Ask my dad. He was there with me, and he was like, what is going on? There was almost a fight on the field at the end of this game, and I'm not surprised because it sounds like the Louisville players take after their fans. There was a lot of jawing. I already mentioned the Jordan Clark situation, whether or not a Louisville player spit on him, but the Notre Dame players are giving the L's down, which is so great. I love that. Like, everyone knows about horns down for Texas, but L's down going against Louisville is pretty satisfying. So there were some L's being thrown down at the end of this game from my direction. And I just thought that there was a real animosity between these two teams and these two fan bases in this game. And I felt like the fan base fed off the team, as they did throughout this whole game. When there was something to be excited about, they got excited. And was it the same crowd? Was it the same environment as Ohio State last year? No, but that was one of the biggest games in recent Notre Dame Stadium history, and you just can't fake that. That was actually the last home game that I went to. So yeah, there was a significant drop-off between that environment and this one. I thought the green out helped. The rain and the fact that it was a day game on Peacock did affect it, in my opinion, because it didn't feel like such a big game. Like, it wasn't one that the whole college football world was going to be talking about, despite the fact that it was a ranked matchup because it was on Peacock and it was the same day as Georgia, Alabama. It didn't have quite the same big game feel, and I've been to a lot of big games in that stadium. But I thought overall, the crowd brought it in this one. They were there in big moments. They had an impact on the game, and Jeff Brom, the head coach, even admitted that. But the fact of the matter is that the Northern Illinois loss is still at the top of mind for so many people. I heard it a lot in the tailgates, and it's just not going away anytime soon until this team does something to make you forget about that game. And I thought they had a chance to win this one, but they let Louisville hang around, and they still won, and there's definitely a lot of things to be excited about, but they just missed an opportunity to really just stomp a team and show what they could be if they reach their full potential. If this team keeps winning, they keep improving, I think this fan base is going to rally for them. I feel very confident about that because I think the fan base really wants Marcus Freeman and this team to succeed. It's just been, a slow start, even though they're 4-1. But overall, it was a great weekend. It wasn't perfect, but when you can get revenge against a team like that and shut up a fan base like that at home in a ranked matchup, that's a big deal. It wasn't pretty, but they needed to win. They did. And if you want to focus on the bad stuff and not enjoy it, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to feel, but that's not what I'm going to do. I love the sport. I love this team, and I'm going to enjoy the wins when they get them because that's what makes this fun, and it's even more fun when you get to do it against a team like Louisville. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. Luke Smith will be on tomorrow, as he is every Tuesday, to share our final thoughts about the game, go over everything we liked and didn't like from this one. Plus, we got to get his reaction now that Riley Leonard did, in fact, hit the over on passing touchdowns compared to the amount of weddings he attended in September. It was close. Riley passed for 3 touchdowns. He got that third one on a screen pass to the running back, but it counts the same compared to 2 weddings. So that'll be fun to talk about. Got a lot more great stuff coming your way this week, even though it's a bye week. So remember to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow.